Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here and for your service. I want to ask about the size of the National Guard. Maybe, General Grass, I'm sure you're aware that when you talk about restructuring and reducing the size, not only of the active services, but the Guard and the Reserve, that causes a certain amount of consternation back in the states. And I can tell you, in a state like Florida, where you have a unusually active Guard, not only in terms of defending us abroad, but also meeting some of the needs. There was a time when we had 4 hurricanes in a 3-week period. And so you couple that with the fact that in a state like Florida, it actually has the lowest ratio of guardsmen to population. I think we're number 54 out of 54. And so my question is, when you meet with the Army to decide about this restructuring and reduction, do you take into consideration the different needs in the different states, the different sizes in terms of ratio to population, questions of readiness? Some states are more ready to go than other states. Talk about the factors that went into those decisions.
Congressman, 2 things that occur here when we go through the analysis, and both my partners here could go into great detail, but the first one is when we have to make a reduction across the board. We work with the Adjutant General, and we've developed a model that we plug the numbers in of what the reduction is, and it takes in the recent deployments, it takes in the readiness accounts, it takes in the demographics. But we always realize there has to be a baseline of command and control units in place, because just having soldiers and airmen in there doesn't accomplish the mission when it's time to respond to a hurricane or any type of a disaster. The second part, though, that in addition to the model, that we're taking a serious look at right now, and my plans chief has been working on this for 1.5 years with FEMA and with NORTHCOM, is we've never been able to model for the states what we call the worst night in America. You know, something well beyond a Hurricane Katrina. One of the exercises we're getting ready to run right now is on the west coast of the United States in California, an 8.2 earthquake, you know, in downtown Los Angeles or on the New Madrid. So now we're modeling it. We've brought in the state plans, which are synchronized between the National Guard and the local responders, and we're looking at where the gaps and seams are in that. And that should generate for the future the plans that we will build to. And Administrator Fugate has been great supporting us on this, giving us the ideas of the response time. And we have 10 essential functions that we look at, that we use in just about every disaster. So we will be looking at how those are positioned across the country. So a lot of work to do to get to that. Right now, what we're working at is with the current round of cuts and the number I mentioned under the Budget Control Act and sequestration of going down to 315,000 from, you know, by the end of 15, we're going to be down to 350,200 Army Guard and about 105,000 Air Guard. When we drop that low, I'm very concerned about the response times. We'll still have people, soldiers and airmen that can move. We'll have reduced command and control, and the response times to get in and help is going to be longer.
Thank you. A quick follow-up maybe to what Chairman Rogers.
Absolutely.
Just take a second.
Would you yield to me after you're through the question? I just have
Yes,
a brief
sir.
question.
You know, Chairman Rogers talked about the counter-drug program, and what's interesting is I think we all agree it's a great program, and while you don't always ask for the money, Congress always puts money in. But the last couple of years there's been like $100 million that expires because it wasn't spent and then it wasn't transferred to another account. Can you explain that?
Congressman, one of the problems we deal in, and that most of that money comes in pay and allowances. So like last year, we got the money in June. Our fiscal year ends the end of September. So we had to cut back at the start of the year because we didn't have the money to keep people on duty. And when we got the money, now you're looking at trying to hire people to come in, and you got to get them trained up. And we ended up running out of time to spend the money. It was hard to, it was about $130 million, I think, last year that we had to try to use, and we didn't want to waste it in any way. We wanted to make sure it was used effectively out in the communities with each state. But it's that up and down that makes it very difficult.
Would you yield to me? I just want to, my predecessor told me once, and told me, General Clark, Does the Air Force Guard have any C-130s in Florida?
I'm sorry, sir, does the Air Guard have?
Any C-130s in Florida?
No, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I don't want to add on to your anxiety, but, you know, that workhorse would be, I think, pretty valuable in a state that has, you know, faced so many incredible crises.